interviewed, with the people that I've interviewed, is that I didn't know them because we were not so personally related or something like that. So having those interviews actually opened this room of me knowing them and knowing their acumen and things, knowing exactly where can I have concentrated questions. So that video was like a research to me. So it was very interesting to to go through your brain.
Thank you. It was very nice. It was an interesting conversation, and I hope we have another good conversation today.
Yeah, I want us to start right away with today's one. But before we get into anything, I just want to say welcome on Asvaye, and thank you, bro, for gracing us with your presence. It really means a lot for me, knowing how occupied you are. And, you could have chose something else, but you being here with us, it really means a lot. So thanks for coming.
No, thanks for the conversation. There's this person who says that you either choose between conversation and war. So if we aren't talking to each other, we're fighting each other. So I'd far rather that we talk to each other.
Yeah, love that. I want to start with the very first question, the question of purpose, right? We're living in times where like people would feel like if you don't have a purpose in life, you're really stuck and life is not of no progress for you. What does purpose mean for you, and how, like, what you've got to say about this thing of people feeling like lack of purpose is a blockage?
Yeah, so I spent a lot of my time reading and writing philosophy. And this question on purpose, on meaning, on destiny, fate, will, all of these interrelated questions have been a really big question mark for people in their individual lives, for communities in terms of the ways that they plan, the activities that they do, and then wider societies. Usually people will adopt a function that they fulfill in their society, and that function might be related to need. Like there's certain circumstances that they are reacting to or adapting to, and they don't have a lot of control over those circumstances. So many people end up living lives of responding to the world, but not really crafting a place of their own within that world. And that's what you're calling purpose. For some people, they have the capacity, the ability, the leisure, the freedom, the privilege, whatever, to find themselves, to create a part of themselves within the world, and then to actualize, to fulfill themselves. Mm-hmm. But many, they just don't. So the first thing is, are the conditions in the world even right for people to discover their purpose? Or are people so stuck in having to respond to the conditions of the world? I mean, some people are in war-torn states, people living in poverty, and I suppose then what we need to do is we need to come together as a community and say, are we really creating a world where people can even find their purpose in that world? And then secondly, for those who already have the ability to find their purpose, like maybe the basic needs have been met, for instance, and they're living in relative peace and security, the question for that person is, are they seeking meaning? Because it's not always the case that when someone has their basic needs met, that they do something meaningful with their lives. True. Sometimes they just don't know what to do because, I mean, everyone else is just working hard, is trying to improve their lot in life. But for those whose lot in life is already okay, they don't know what to focus their energy on. So it ends up being consumerism and substances and being a bad person or accumulating power or wealth. It's a very difficult decision to figure out what is meaningful for you. So my advice, this is the philosopher hat speaking, is to do two things: is to look inward and outward. Almost look inward to understand who they are and the kind of things that they do, what kind of motivations they have, what drives them. So when you do this, why did you do that? Did you do that because you found it meaningful, or did you do that because you didn't know what to do, or you were bored, or you had a bad intention, maybe you wanted to hurt someone? What is your motivation? And then focus on only doing the things that are motivated by meaningful things. So you get the answer to the question, okay, why did I do that? If the answer to that question is a good answer, or one that you think is meaningful, continue doing that. If the answer to the question is something like, oh, I did it because I'm addicted to it, or because I didn't know what to do, or because someone who's a bad character in my life advised me to do it, maybe don't anymore. And then look outward as well. Like, look at the kind of things that are happening in the world around you and what influence you can have on other things and what responsibilities you can have. There's a philosopher called Jean-Paul Sartre who says that we are responsible for everything in our lives and in the lives of others. Like, when I wake up in the morning, I gotta open my eyes, I gotta eat, I gotta move my hands. There's nothing I can do to remove my responsibilities. And so I think that when you look inward and outward, you'll become a more responsible person. And by becoming a more responsible person, you may discover your purpose.
Right. I like that. I want to go in depth of that explanation, right? By asking what exactly purpose is. Is it what you limit to as something meaningful, doing something meaningful, or it goes deeper than that?
Yeah, I think that there must be some level of it belonging to you. So there's an agency. Usually, when we speak about something being your purpose, we mean it's not a dream that your parents had for you or your friends had for you. It's a dream that you've concocted on your own for how you want to live your life. So yes, it's meaningful, but it also belongs to you. You have created it with your own ingenuity, within your own hands, your own imagination. So I think both of those things have to be met. It's obviously something you want for yourself in your life, and it's something you specifically want.
I love that. Just want to check something right here.
Just some small technical things.
No, it's fine, man. So now I want to get to a point where someone is feeling stuck and they really have a very chaotic mind to choose that this is meaningful for me or this is not meaningful for me. And for me, I mean, I have mentees, people that I would tell them from time to time that this is how we can look at it, and this is from the angle that we can come from. So with many people that say I'm stuck, the first thing that comes in their mind is that when I get my purpose, it will give me monetary benefits. Yeah, and you are a true example of, I think, of a, like, money cannot buy you happiness, you know. I want you to go deep on that. What do you think is a misconception of the society when it comes to money? Because, bro, I look at you and I've seen you before. I admire you for your simplicity, and we spoke about consumerism before and how you went on that, and we're still gonna touch on it. But what are the, like, misconceptions in the society about money?
Okay,
as
so
far as the purpose,
yeah.
Purpose concept is related.
Yeah, there's two layers to that question. The first one was on mindset and people getting stuck. And I just want to say, like, if you're someone you're stuck in your mindset that you have, or your vices, your addictions, these are interwoven with our psychology, sometimes with our biology. They're really complicated things. There's no easy snap of the finger change that you can do in your life that takes you out of the way you're living right now and your behaviors. It's obviously a very difficult journey. I would recommend that you don't do it alone. I don't think anyone can change themselves and move in the direction of the life they want to live purely by the power of their own will. I think it's going to take others, strong community structures, whether it's your friends, or your family, or your romantic partners, that are really going to help you on your journey as you get there. Just don't do hurtful things to them, obviously, to ruin that relationship. Obviously, if you ruin your relationships with others, then they're not going to be able to, or be willing to reciprocate in terms of your journey and help you out along the way. Don't use them, obviously, but you can't do this alone. Then on money, so I know that we spoke a lot about money in the previous conversation we had. It's not a personal goal of mine, but you were asking about other people's goals to generate money. So, can I say a few things here?
Not specifically generation of it, because I think not anyone wants to generate money, but I think there's a common way in which community perceive money.
What money is.
Yeah,
and like how we view money as a thing.
Okay. That's why I'm saying, like, the misconception of it.
That simplifies the question. So there's a few things here. Maybe there is a positive conception of money. Money is a resource that you can use to do great things for your community. Like, maybe you could use money to improve the lives of the members of your community. You know, it's definitely possible that money can do good. As a tool, it can do good, it can do bad. But if we talk about money that an individual owns, it doesn't belong to a community now, not community money, individual money. If that individual does not use that money on the community, the problem is there's only so much resources that can go around. And when some people get a lot of those resources, other people get deprived. So a big problem with money in our world right now is that some people have a lot of it, and then some people have very little of it. So if that person doesn't share their money with everyone else, then all those other people are going to suffer, and they're going to have really bad quality of life. And the few people that have a lot of money are going to have a really good quality of life. So it comes, your quality of life as the person that has a lot of money comes at the expense of people who are earning a lot less. Maybe they're working just as hard as you are, but they're working in a job that doesn't pay them for this or that reason. They're undervalued by the society. Maybe they're being exploited. some of them maybe had a decent life going for them, but then circumstances that were outside of their own control mean that now they've got a disability. They can't work anymore, for instance.
Okay.
How are they supposed to even earn money in the first place now? Because there's many jobs that are no longer available to them. Or they're being discriminated in the society that they live within. Maybe they're a religious minority or an ethnic minority, for instance. Now, how is that person supposed to even find a job and make money? And in the world we're living in right now, South Africa, in this area, youth unemployment is at 40%. I mean, it's not like people are not trying to find work. They just can't. So when you've got a person with a lot of money, and there's everyone else who has very little money, and you're enjoying the most lavish life, you've got to ask yourself, what responsibility do you have for those who are suffering? And I'm not even talking about people who are suffering because they aren't trying to help themselves. I mean, there are people who are earnestly trying to improve their lot in life, but the circumstances they find themselves in make it very difficult. People don't choose what family they're born into and which area of the country they're born into. They're things that, now there are people who do come from those areas who make it and they start to make some money, but it's not like that's a route everyone can take and follow. Not everyone can make money in the same way. And that's the second problem with money. It's that it chooses winners and losers. Sometimes it's random, like the lottery, that's luck. Other times it is targeted to systems. Like if you're a white person in South Africa, you're more likely to have the network that helps you get opportunities because of the past system where all the white people were the people who were connected. So you might graduate from university and get a job immediately, but the person you were in class with struggles to find work. And you found a job because your parent knows someone who knows someone who knows someone, and it helps you get a connection. Those are just smaller things where you were helped. Yes, you're working hard, but you were helped by the system around you. And money is that. It's like that. It's all about networking. It's about who you know. It chooses winners and losers. And I think the final thing about money is, and this goes to your point on happiness, when you have no money, it's very easy to want to portray all your dreams into it. Like, okay, once I get money, everything's going to be fine now. I'll be happy now. It's because remember, you're living without money, and there's also a lot of awful things happening around you, and you probably are also facing mental and psychological issues as well. And all of that, you're saying, okay, it must be because I don't have money, because I have everything but money. So obviously, once I get the money, then it will fix all these problems. And then many people, because they don't get that money at all, they will constantly keep chasing after it. And for those who do get that money, they realize, no, this doesn't actually solve the problem. Like, I need to sit within myself to find out what I find meaning and value in. And some of those things I find meaning and value in do require resources, obviously. So we must put together resources to do things. Like food is a resource, shelter is a resource. I'm not saying we should live without resources. The simple life you're saying that I live is a simple life that still has resources attached to it. Just that I'm not trying to chase after money as an individual to improve myself at the expense of other people. But we should be careful of assuming that money will solve a lot of the psychological and community-based issues we experience. It's a very common story. Someone gets a lot of money, now they've got friends. They lose that money, they lose all their friends. Then they realize, oh, there's people only around me because I had money, not because they actually wanted to be my friend. Now, if you want to make friends, I wouldn't recommend using money to make friends. I'd recommend making friends. So whatever problem you have in your life, I'd recommend doing that. If you feel like your life doesn't have purpose, I'd recommend finding purpose. If you feel as if the world doesn't see you as a good enough person, I'd recommend either ignoring some of those perceptions from people you cannot change, or looking inward and seeing what kind of person you are and what makes you great. Not trying to fill all that emptiness with consumer goods, fast cars, big house, money. Because at the end of the day, that world which doesn't see you as a good person or as good enough is just going to see you as a not good enough person, but with money. Adding money to whatever issue you're going through means you're still going through that issue, but with money. Now, some people will probably say, at least, I might be going through a lot, but at least I have money. But my message to them is a community and resources can do way more for you than money can. If you have a lot of money, but the people around you don't like you, you're always looking over your back. Okay, is this person going to steal from me? Is this money that I have, can I even hold on to it? Or will they hurt me? Will they harm me in order to get what I have? When you build a relationship with someone, you won't know, okay, does this person really like me or do they like my money? You'll have a lot of uncertainty because your community structures are weak. But if your community structures are strong, if you don't have money, you've got people to help you out. And if you do have money, then you don't think that people only like you because of your money. So there's a lot of different stuff, but it all connects to your question about the perception of money. And what I would recommend people do is don't perceive money as a good or a bad thing, just perceive it as a resource, and hopefully a resource that can help many and not just one.
So based on that, summing up everything that you say, I don't know how much percentage do you agree on the thing that money cannot buy you happiness?
Yeah, I fully agree. I don't think happiness can be bought. I don't think it's a good. You can't walk into a shopping center, no matter how much Coca-Cola tries to tell you in their advertising, or McDonald's, that you're eating and drinking happiness. For starters, I think there's some level of self-defining what happiness is for you. And then as a community, you define what makes you as a community happy. So already, who is defining it are people, not companies. So goods that you buy with money are defined by companies. It's a company that takes Rice Krispies and creates the recipe for it, and decides how it tastes, and decides what it's going to be packaged in, and decides the price together with the market. The company and the market, they're making decisions about the product. But when it comes to happiness, that decision is not being made by a market. Those decisions are made by people and communities. And so a market cannot offer you happiness because the market cannot even define happiness. It can't package it. It can't put it into a box and put it onto a shelf. But who can do something like that? Oh, we can't put it on a shelf, but we can create it for ourselves as people. And you can do that with money. You can do that without money. Money is not involved in the equation of happiness. So I fully agree.
I love that so much, bro. I want to jump. I think it's in the chain of the same conversation. I want to jump to what you said previously. You said the world that we're living in is simply structured in a manner that won't allow an average individual to succeed.
Yep.
The world is systematized in a way that an average or a common man in the crowd is bound to fail. How do we retaliate, personally retaliate into that? Because I mean, that statement, as expressive as it is, it creates fear into an individual, right? Because I guess the worst advice that has been given a boy in township is the saying that say the world is not created for you to succeed, and that boy live his whole life in fear, and he end up not even making it out of poverty, or end up thinking that poverty is where you're supposed to just die because you're born in there. So I want to now try to create this and this room where this person sees that as much as this world is structured in a systematic way that would, in simple terms, fight against them in any progress they're trying to make. How do they retaliate to that? How do you live as a person? Because you know it exactly that it's difficult for you to come to at the top of your dreams, at the top of your wellness. How do you retaliate to that?
Yeah, if someone's living in poverty, for instance, or they're in a war-torn area, or there's a lot of violence in the community they live in, we obviously don't want them to start to resent the world, to feel as if the world is so unfair, there's nothing we can do about it. Like I've said throughout the previous conversation and this one, I believe in community structures. As one individual, I don't know if you've ever taken straw or hay and or grass even, it's very easy to tear it apart. But when you take a lot of them and you add it together, it's very difficult to break it. Putting people together makes us stronger. That's why trade unions is when workers collaborate and work together. We create these things called mutual aid networks where people help each other out. Some people, they live together in things called communes. They are real world examples of people working together and collaborating. In South Africa, you can register something called a cooperative. So this is a kind of company where all the people that are in the cooperative, whether it's a farming cooperative, a housing cooperative, a cooperative bank, they work together for the benefit of the members of that cooperative to make sure everyone's got food, all the money that's made by the cooperative is spread evenly among the members, everyone's got an equal decision-making capacity. So they are structures which are community-based, and this can happen in a township or an urban area. The concept of working together is possible in every context, but obviously some communities are stronger, some communities are weaker. You first need to build up your community before the community can work together. You can't just wave a wand and then community members work together. It's going to take a lot of hard work and effort to build a strong community. But once that strong community is built, it can fight against the structures of the world. It's not going to be easy, but it's possible. I don't think the route to success is individual, though. I don't think a person can, on their own, take on the system, the structures, and succeed. And that's where the resentment comes in. Because you try to fight the system, and it keeps knocking you down, and you keep failing, and you constantly keep failing, and then You keep growing old, and now you believe, no, obviously being poor was just my lot in life. Being oppressed was my lot in life. I can't do anything about it. It's hopeless. You can even get angry at the system. You can decide to do hurtful things to other people and become a violent person because of that even. But that's because you try to go at it alone. But then when you go at it with other people, even when you fail, you're failing together as a group, and you've got other people to rely on, people who've got a shared story and shared journey with you. You feel like you're doing something bigger than yourself as well. You're less likely to fall into that resentment and those psychological issues. So I think it's the problem of people trying to be individuals and going at the system alone that leads to that mindset of resentment and failure and giving up. But if we can work together and fight against the systems together, I think even at moments where we fail, we still don't feel demotivated.
See, you label and identify yourself as a very conscious person, right? And from where I'm sitting, I think I can categorize that from like how you speak, what you stand for. What does being conscious mean or represent? Because a lot of the subjects that we touched on, like it's like you were part of it, but in a different mindset, and this is the mindset of consciousness. So if someone wants to get into that, but before they even want to get to that, how do you make them understand that this is what it means to be conscious? So what does that mean?
I was talking about building community structures earlier, and that's something I'm involved in right here in Bloemfontein. Sure. It's not easy to do that, and I think many people will get involved in community structures, but after they built. So you'll go volunteer at an NGO, you'll go to a soup kitchen, you'll join a protest. There are activities that people do take, which are also evidence of their consciousness. But I think for many people, they want it to be an easier choice, a more convenient choice to make, and that's very understandable. But then there's a few people who are like myself, who are trying to build and do the difficult bits so that it's easier for other people to be conscious. Not everyone wants to do the difficult bits, and it's not just me. I think there's enough of us. So, I mean, to your wider question, if someone wants to become more conscious, I think you have to do, yes, you can read books and you can have conversations like we're having now, but it's about what you do that will fundamentally matter. And why is that? Because when you do things to build community structures, you make it easier for other people to participate. There are people who want to participate in community structures, but it's more difficult for them. Maybe they've got more pressing immediate problems to try and solve, or they have a disability and they struggle to move around or participate intellectually, or, you know, there's different reasons why someone can't always participate in revolutionary struggle to the extent that the rest of us can. So if you want to be a conscious person, you need to do. I don't think you should be rash in what you do. Like, I don't think you should just run in and, you know, break as many laws as possible and get arrested and spend your life in prison because you're now an activist. I think you need to think strategically about how you become an activist and how you fight against systems of power. And we obviously have our own strategy that we follow. You also shouldn't go into it with too much personal benefit in mind. There's a lot of non-government organizations that have huge salaries for the people who are involved in the NGO. And sometimes you're donating it to a charity, and most of the money actually goes to the administrators or the staff members or the personnel of that charity who keep the charity afloat. Then it goes to actually helping people that the charity is meant to help. So it's mostly just high-end employment for a select few people who work at that organization, and then some level of social good. Now, I don't think that's a very conscious approach, because you're going into this movement to earn a lot of money, or you're going into this movement to benefit yourself in any kind of way. So I think you need to prepare to do hard work. You need to prepare to be strategic and not just take the worst possible strategy that's just going to hurt you and everyone else. Like, if you're hurting yourself too much in the process, you're making the world worse, because you're making a net bad for yourself, which means you're making a net bad. So you shouldn't be making a net bad for yourself. You shouldn't be making a net bad for anyone. You need to be strategic. And you also shouldn't go into a movement for your own self-benefit. I'm not saying you should necessarily sacrifice yourself, but I'm saying you shouldn't go in wanting too much benefit for yourself. So if you can do those three things, I think you're conscious.
All right. Just before I come here, now I want to ask a very personal question. Not even exposing your age, but I'm pretty sure you've had more than 20 years to live on this earth. How this world has pained you?
Pain, like what kind of traumas?
Yeah.
From a young age, I was obviously aware of the different structures of control, and I believe in freedom. I believe in radical freedom, and this is not a world that wants you to be free. There's obviously a lot of control. I mean, in school, they're telling you how to dress and what to do, and it's silly rituals and traditions that really shouldn't matter for the world in which we live within. And then after that, now you need to earn money and you need to actually work for an employer and you have to actually make money for that employer and make very little for yourself. And do you really feel free now? Your boss telling you what to do, where to go, they can fire you at any moment, you're not free. So in the different aspects of our lives, we just don't feel free. So I think I, like many other people, I'm still searching for that sense of freedom. And it's going to come with a lot of pain to look for freedom because you are rejecting the society. The society retaliates. And some people are like, oh, how dare you be free when I can't be free? So you've also got people that try and drag you down. There's people who misunderstand you and what you're trying to do. There's people who are trying to outcast you and ostracize you and they'll be like, okay, no, you shouldn't be part of us because you're too different to the way in which we do things. But I think I've really worked to overcome a lot of those pains. Like, I don't think it rests too heavily on me. And there's a few reasons for that. The first is I have such a strong community structure, people that I can rely on. So I don't think so much about how the world pains me as much as I think about this new world that we're creating. The second reason is the vision we have, the thing that we're trying to do is so much bigger than all the insults and all the rules and all the things that the world is trying to throw at us. So it's easy to focus on this bigger vision and to put our energy into making a difference in people's lives than it is to focus on, oh, this person said something mean to me, you know. Not that, that is not serious. Like if you are feeling hurt by words that have been directed at you or things that you're going through in your life, I'm not trying to say that, oh, it's small. But I do think that in my personal life, the fact that I'm focusing on this grand vision, it does help. Maybe something very personal is, in my life, I obviously want to do great things, you know, and we haven't always done those great things that sometimes we fail. Sometimes I'm like, okay, you know, maybe it would be great if I can do more, if I can improve my capacities. I'm just a human being, I'm limited, I'm also flawed. So that's not how the world has painted me, but I mean, I sometimes do think, okay, it would be nice for me to be able to do more and to be more capable as a person. But overall, I don't think I'm in pain. I think I'm finding meaning, and it's a beautiful journey to be on, that I'm with other people as well.
Last time you did mention something about freedom. Like I'm just pinpointing now from the description that you just gave, right? You said, it is said that we're living in a world where we define freedom based on the type of oppression that we have. Like in my mind at that moment, it sounded like, look, if this system wasn't here, the oppressive system, we were gonna have another definition of freedom. Or whether it's here or it's not here, we have another sort of sacred, I don't know if I can call it sacred or original definition of freedom, but it's just that our definition or our words that we put into this definition are clouded because of this type of oppression that we're facing as people. Have you gone to discover what could be the original definition of being free?
Yeah, so I don't think freedom is when you don't have chains on you. I think obviously when you have chains on you, you obviously are not free, but it doesn't mean once the chains have been removed, you are free. So just because you remove an obstacle on your path doesn't mean you're walking, you know? So if you think about it that way, I obviously agree when there's oppression, people can't walk forward. But removing that oppression doesn't necessarily mean that their legs are moving. The freedom is the actual movement of their legs. It's the things that we do that make us free, not the lack of things that are imprisoning us. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I think that whether there was oppression or not, like you just phrased it, perfect articulation, we should have an understanding of what meaning is. What is the kind of life I want to live? Because once the chains are removed and we have no understanding of what kind of life we want to live, it's very easy for us to create new chains or to become people that put chains on others or to feel like, okay, now what? I've spent my whole life fighting to get out of these chains, now what do I do? Like people who, you're living in poverty, you finally make money, now you're no longer living in poverty, that's chains that are off you. but you don't know what you actually want to do with your life. You just know that you didn't want to be poor. And you didn't have an idea of what you would do once the chains are off. I mean, apart from spending the money. Or maybe you did have an idea. That person is free. That person knew what kind of life they wanted to live once the chains were removed from their hands. They didn't focus their life on removing the chains. So I think that is my message. It's not that the chains are not there. Yeah, they are there. There is obviously a huge rock on your road that's preventing you from walking forward. But we shouldn't assume that removing the rock means you can walk. You know, there's obviously a lot that goes into the ability to walk down a path that matters. And once that rock is removed, and we should work to get rid of those rocks, we have to have a serious conversation about what happens the day after the revolution. Because right now, I don't think we're ready for the rock to be removed. Although it should be removed. I'm not saying that because we're not ready, it shouldn't be removed, but we are not ready for it to be removed.
Why are you saying that?
I think what should drive our revolution, and the reason why we should remove the rock, is not because there's a rock there. We should remove the rock because we want to walk. And I think some people have that twisted. Some people, they're focusing on removing the chain because there's a chain, not because there's things they want to do with their hands. You know, yes, this is an oppressive, evil system. We need to get rid of it. But that's as far as the articulation has gone. Because it's evil, we should do away with it. But I mean, what is good? You know, and what does good look like? And that's the part we haven't focused a lot on. Well, what kind of life should we be living? And there's an approach in the world called prefiguration, which is like where you try and live in the future world right now. Like if you think we should be eating or growing our own food, for instance, then start growing your own food right now. If you think we should be living in communes where we all live together, then live in a commune now if you're able to. So you kind of live in the world you want to live in right now, and then you inspire other people to do the same. And through doing that, you might actually get rid of the rock in the road. We might actually defeat our oppressor, not by trying to get rid of the chains, but just by being free. And through the act of being free, the chains will disappear.
Have you ever got to a moment where you ask yourself what it means to be black in this community that we're living in?
Yeah.
And what was the answer? I'm so interested to hear that.
So I mean, most of our lives, South Africa is 80% black. You're mostly going to speak to and deal with other black people. So being black just feels quite regular. It just feels like we all are black, really. But then living in South Africa, blackness is also attached to oppression and disadvantage. And you live in societies where the street names are named after apartheid-era Afrikaans white people and the institutions of power. Especially as you start to gain more and more access to resources, you start to see that there's a lot of white people who have resources, and some of them are still really problematic people who are still trying to keep black people under.
Certainly, man.
Now you're like, okay, yeah, but to be black also means to have a disadvantage in life, and there's certain things you won't have access to. It's a certain lack, you know, and you can't pretend that like this is like, black empowerment, black excellence movement, and it's like framing blackness as something that excels. And obviously, a black person can excel, but for the vast majority of black people, we're not excelling, obviously. The apartheid system did a number on South Africa. So I don't think there's a way to, at the moment, conceptualize blackness without conceptualizing oppression, without conceptualizing poverty and violence and horror, terror. Those things are currently intertwined with blackness, and you can't just separate them from your mind when the world in which we see it. Like when you see black people on the ground, homeless, you know, in lines, you know, you can't look at that and then not think that to be black is to be destitute and to be subjugated. It's obviously the case that is what's happening, and that's why Black Lives Matter is trying to create this new perception of, black lives do actually matter, we do matter, because it's recognizing that at the moment we don't. So I don't see it as a personal thing, like for me as Chi, like how do I feel being black? I see blackness as a community thing. It's a race category, which means it doesn't belong to one person, it belongs to many of us. And I think I'm part of a community of black people who are trying to do something to improve the lot of our lives, but are recognizing that most black people are still living really awful lives right now. And it kind of sucks that some black people are doing better, but are not coming back to help the rest of us. Like they're making more money, they're accessing resources and opportunities, but they aren't turning around and saying, that person shares my common experience of the world. We have a metaphysical connection through our race. But they are ignoring that metaphysical connection and are focusing on their personal and immediate lives. And of obviously a lot of division among black people. There's a huge inequality. You've got black millionaires in the country, and then people that are struggling to get by, who are on grant beneficiaries. 1 in 3 South Africans are grant beneficiaries, and that grant money is not even enough for the consumer price index, like the food baskets and things they need to buy. Never mind if they have other people who are depending on them. So they've even got to split that money between so many people are struggling at the same time as some black people are doing exceptionally well. It immediately asks you the question, is our blackness really equal if for some black people they're doing so well and some black people aren't? So, that's the next dimension of what it means to be black. It means to be divided, And I wish that wasn't the case.
God, man, I gotta tell you about my previous week experience. So we interviewed Gerd Feinstein last week. Yeah, he was sitting right there. I'm gonna tell you about the experience that actually troubled me throughout the editing of the visuals. In the video, I had to look for the things that would offend the media, like mentioning things. You see, now we're having a conversation about black people. It's not easy to have the same conversation with a white person about white people, saying the same thing that we say for ourselves, but saying for them. You understand? And I remember some of the conversation, or maybe some questions that went into it. I was saying, I'm coming from a society where I didn't understand why rugby is for white people. And he said something like, I don't understand why black people, and that was the thing right there, right? So I'm ever wondering in my mind, will we ever live in a world where we see an absolute equality without feeling inferior in maybe someone's else expressions? Do you ever think, because I know you are a very diverse person in community. I've seen you working with different type of people, according to your bio. Do you ever think we're gonna get to a point where we are equally? Now, I'm not saying equally financially, but equally in environmentally, in a manner that we don't feel inferior as black people. In what angle? And white people don't feel superior. We're just people. We just engage as people without seeing the color, but we see the expressions. Do you ever live in that?
I don't know. I don't think it's going to happen in our lifetime. I've seen many multiracial coalitions, and our organization, obviously, anyone can work with us of any race or creed. But the reality of the situation is that there's many white people who grow up in conservative or enclaved environments. They're hearing very racist things from their parents or uncles or the environment. They're raised in an environment of exclusion where the only black people they interact with are people who are cleaning their homes, for instance, or gardening. So it's difficult to say now that person should not develop some kind of complex of superiority, and then the person that's cleaning a white person's home should not develop a complex of inferiority, when the reality of the situation is it's kind of obvious. One person's cleaning the house and the other's dirtying the house, So as long as the realities of white people and black people in South Africa don't change, the complexes that are associated with it are going to continue as well. So I do think the real conditions of black people need to change in order for our way that we see ourselves to change as well. Biko, obviously, with the Black Consciousness Movement and many others, we're trying to create a new idea, a metaphysical reality of what it means to be black, and detach that from a white gaze. We are not defined based on how white people see us, but it's very difficult, to just turn that off very immediately and pretend that this isn't the reality. So again, I turn back to community structures. If you have strong community structures, it's easier for that inferiority complex to be eased. It's easier for you to deal with it. Not just inferiority, any psychological complex that comes as a result of the life you're living. Black people are way more exposed to violence, way more exposed to substances. Even violence from the police. The people who are supposed to be protecting black communities are terrorizing in Marikana, during Feast Must Fall. You saw police are very violent towards black people in ways that...
This guy was mentioning a person like S.K. Koza, I think. the guy who got beaten up in COVID-19 area.
Precisely, yeah.
Yeah.
And they don't necessarily treat white people in the same way. So there's a different application based on your racial. So yeah, it's difficult to look at all of that and say black consciousness, but black excellence, or very positive things. Like you gotta admit that there is something in the world that is structurally disadvantaging certain identity groups. Like black people, for instance, then you can say black women, and then you can look at black women with disabilities, and there's obviously disadvantages, and to shy away from them, and to say we just see everyone as people without changing those disadvantages won't work, because then if everyone is we're just seeing everyone equally as people, like from our mindset perspective, we aren't doing anything to change that structure. So we must struggle against the inequality, as you say. And we can only reach that equality by struggling against the inequality. But in doing that, we can be conscious of what we think it means to be a person, what it means to be a black person. And we don't have to agree that the view of the oppressor is correct. Like the oppressor, like Fuvut, doesn't think that the black child should learn mathematics. We can recognize that there's that view, like the Fuvutian view that black people are unintelligent. And there's that book that was written that said black people have low IQs. We can be aware of the views and the racist ideas that are out there in the world and how they apply to us without agreeing with them. So I think the inferiority complex maybe emerges at a point where we agree with the view, but we should recognize the view but not agree with it. But we shouldn't pretend it's not there.
All right, I want to go to some questions that I got from the public, a few of them, right? If you lost the battle within your mind, you have lost it within the world. What does that mean?
Yeah, it's probably true. It's very vague to one-liner sentence.
That's what this is what you said from the previous interview.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I added more to it than just that.
So the context was failure.
Yeah.
Just to bring you on the context of it, it was failure. We were talking about failure, how failure make many people miserable. I was telling you about how I've developed a thick skin for it. And you said something like, if you win the battle in your mind, therefore you have ultimately won in the actual world.
Yeah, obviously I agree with my own words. Earlier I said you got to look inward before looking outward. You don't look outward first. There are psychological things that you need to prepare yourself for, and then you interact with the world. Sorry, I was just like, some people throw away one-liners, and then you never know what they mean by what they're saying. So you're afraid to agree with it until you hear it fleshed out. But in this case, I agree. If you win the battle in your mind, you can win the battle in your world. You need to prepare yourself psychologically to fight against the structures in the world. If you're not prepared psychologically, it's really going to affect you. And especially, you're going to fail. You really are going to fail. And if you don't take that failure very well, then you're going to be held back. And then you really will fail for real because of how you've responded to your failure.
All right. The question that was asked numerous times is a question about walking barefoot.
Oh, yes.
Why do you walk barefoot?
Very simple answer, I'm just used to it. I don't think there's much more to discuss than some people are used to doing things, and so they continue doing it. Yeah.
Like there's no spirituality in it, or level of consciousness, or consumerism?
Not necessarily. I think I like to walk barefoot, obviously, and so I do it because I like it and I'm used to it. Yeah.
Did you feel connected anyhow?
How
is it different when you're wearing shoes?
We live in concrete jungles. Everything around us is mortar. I don't know what there is to connect with there. I mean, some company came and put a road with black tar that has now cooled down. Am I connecting to the black tar? Am I connecting to tiles? Am I connecting to ceramics? So it's not like I'm walking out in nature. I'm walking in a city. So I don't think the idea of walking barefoot is to connect with the road.
Is that an indirect message of saying we're now getting into a very artificial world, even to an extent where we cannot relate with nature too?
Yeah, there's a phrase that's not the deer crossing the road, it's the road crossing the forest. I definitely do think we've interrupted nature. You're seeing with climate change, global warming, pollution, even things that hurt other humans who are part of the ecosystem. We are definitely hurting each other. We're creating lots of waste. Companies are controlling water supplies. We're burning down forests. Animals are going extinct. Yes, we're interrupting nature. And not only should we stop for the sake of nature, we should also stop for the sake of ourselves, because we're creating an unlivable planet that will lead to our collective doom. And I don't see how that's a good thing. Yeah.
Okay, now the question that I have for you just before we jump into, sorry, just a minute, bro. Can you say that? I'm gonna cut this part out. What were you? What did you write here? So I have a very short side. I can't see.
I think that back to the previous video when you told me.
So are we still rolling here? Because I'm summing up.
Yeah, we can.
Yeah, I think I have about 2 questions, so I'm just gonna cut this part out. So I want to get into the world of spirituality. Do you acknowledge yourself as a spiritual person? How do you go about that? Because there was this other time I was back home and we were talking about deja vu, because I was with that group of my friends and I'm telling them like I'm having a deja vu, and this other guy was like, what does that actually mean? I'm like, I think it's a true signal that as people, as much as we can deny it by all terms, we are spiritual people. I wouldn't go to like a very depth level of it, of saying we engage with power, or like there's a lot that goes into it. But I came to agree that we are spiritual people, and how we go about it, it's such a different conversation we can have there. What's your take on that, on spirituality?
Yeah, I mostly say I'm a philosophical person, so I spend a lot of time in the realm of philosophy, and that has really framed the way I interact with the world, how I discover myself, how I find meaning. But there's obviously linkages between what one person calls philosophy and another calls spirituality, and sometimes they're intertwined. You know, classical philosophers, for instance, they didn't separate the two schools. They didn't say philosophy and spirituality are two different things. A lot of the time, when they spoke about spirituality, they spoke about philosophy. They spoke about philosophy, they spoke about spirituality. An example of that is the Odu Ifa, which is a Yoruba classical text that many say is religious. Some say it's philosophical, some say it's metaphysical. It's very difficult to decide what it is because it mixes all of them together. I think that's similar with me, like my philosophy or spirituality or metaphysics, it's all one thing, although I branch it all as philosophy. But first and foremost, yes, I'm a philosopher. So I am thinking quite deeply about big questions, smaller questions. I'm trying to systematically analyze all of these questions and then arrive at answers that I'm comfortable with, but I'm still willing to be moved on.
I've never had that, and now the interesting thing in that is, who do you acclaim for your progress? Who do you acclaim for the creation? Like, how do you make sense of the creation if you're a philosopher?
Oh yeah, whew, that's a complicated question. Like, how did we all come to be? There's definitely different stories about how we were created and how we've come to be. But I don't think I'm going to settle that discussion today and like decide this is the story that is the fundamental truth. And philosophy doesn't always answer questions with certainty. It just tries to wonder about our answers, and then it analyzes those answers. So what I'm best at doing is hearing, okay, this is someone's story for creation. I can look at that person's story and then ask myself questions about that story. And then maybe I can take lessons from that story in my own life and apply it in ways that are more meaningful for me. But I don't know if where I'm adept is coming up with the answers. Maybe one day I'll come up with an answer to that question and I'll be able to say, this is how we got to where we are right now. But the best that I can do right now is taking everyone's answers and see what meaning I can find in everyone's answers. Yeah.
All right, see, I have a tradition right here. So this notebook is a notebook I use to study the people that I admire so much, the people that give impact on money, beliefs, and mindset. So I'm just gonna go into this person, and I'm gonna read what their thoughts or how they share their thoughts on this particular thing, and you're just gonna tell me if you agree, and if you want to add more on that, you can actually add more. If you disagree, you can, So specifically for you, I have Rhonda Bai. I don't know if you know the lady. Rhonda Byrne is the lady who wrote the book The Secret, talks about law of attraction. I don't know if you've ever heard about her. So I'm gonna just read some points that she has here. She's saying there is no action in the world that can overlap a belief. So she's under the impression that no matter how hard you work in this world or how much you work, the belief will always succumb you to the results of whatever that you want. In other words, if you're working so hard that you buy a car, but your belief is only saying you're limited to a motorbike, eventually you're gonna stand on the motorbike. You're gonna always be limited to that motorbike. So that's what she meant when she said that. And the other thing on that is that our thoughts, our feelings are not powerful than us. We as people are actually powerful than those. Yeah, what's your take on that?
I like the second statement. I don't know to what extent we control our thoughts and to what extent our thoughts control us. Are we not our thoughts? And I don't have the answer for what's stronger between our thoughts and our feelings. There are some people that have what we call greater emotional intelligence. They're definitely more powerful than their feelings. There are some people who have much lower emotional intelligence. Now those people are somewhat weaker than their feelings. So it differs from person to person. But generally speaking, yes, there are people who are definitely more in control and are more powerful than their emotions. I don't know if those who are not as in control can learn something from them and can do something to be more in control. That's why I don't know about the second statement. Like, is it universally true for everyone that we are all more powerful than our feelings? Or there's some people that just can't really help it, I'm not sure. On the first question, I think there's two things I disagree with. The first is that the decisions other people make impact us. If someone decides to hurt you, they might actually succeed. I don't think that they hurt you because you manifested it or because you had the belief in being hurt and therefore you were hurt. So there's obviously things that are going to happen to you that are not your fault. Like someone else did it to you. It's like what family you're born into. You don't choose where you're born into. It's not like you had a belief and now you're born into a rich family or now you're born into a poor family. You didn't control that. I mean, winning the lotto, maybe some people say you manifested it, but generally, from a scientific perspective, it's a very low probability event that is very random and it's up to chance. So I think there are some things which are not you. It wasn't because of you that this happened. It wasn't because of your lack of belief or because of your belief that this occurred to you. It happened to you. Some things are very unfortunate that happened to you, like, dying in war, for instance, or, it's not your fault. Or being assaulted. It's not you who did that. Someone else did that. It was their decisions and those decisions can affect you. So on the first one, that's the first thing I kind of have with the whole belief thing. And then the second thing I'll say is where I understand what they're saying is you need to have some sort of mindset and drive to do things in the world. So if you don't have the belief, if you don't strongly believe in what you're trying to do, there's a good chance you'll fail because you aren't really putting your full self into it. And if you do something without really believing in it, can you really succeed? So just because you will fail if you don't believe in something, doesn't mean that believing in it means you will succeed. But where I agree with them,
okay.
The lack of belief can definitely tear you down, but the presence of belief doesn't mean automatic success. Yeah.
Man, that's another conversation for another day. I want us to start right on that because there's a lot to unbreak on that. But appreciating the time that I spent having the conversation with you, my last question is if you were living in the last minutes of your life or in your living times, what would be the very best message that you send or you spread?
I would keep doing exactly what I'm doing right now because I think we need to build community structures, and the only way that we're going to make the world a better place is through community.
T, thank you so much for coming, bro. It's been a nice journey to pick up your mind. Never get enough of you. Hoping to see you some later time in our later time.
Thanks, Butley, and thanks for everyone. Asvaye.
I don't know if you shake hands. Thank you so much, bro.
Thank you so much.
All right. Last video?
Yeah, just do a referral so you get more information about the last conversation. Go to
Sorry?
the last video.
Okay. If you haven't watched our previous interview with C, please go on the last video. I interviewed him. We spoke about the world of capitalism, a lot of things that were covered here. For you to understand some of the conversations that went on right here, you have to watch that video. It's a very insightful video. Although we did it online, it doesn't discredit the message. So yeah, till we see you, my friends, next time. Thank you so much for tuning in.